Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Right, so Dillian Whyte, he seems to be one of these people that whoever it is that he fights, there's always going to be a section of people unhappy. Okay, they're always going to criticise no matter who it is that he fights. And I remember for quite some time, people have been going on about how he should have fought Anthony Joshua when he had the opportunity. Of course, I've interviewed Dillian about that, and of course he explained that situation. But the same people who are criticising that he hasn't fought Anthony Joshua in a rematch are the same people who are actually moaning that these guys could have been fighting next. You just can't win. Same people who moan about Anthony Joshua when it looked like he was going to be fighting Tyson Fury. These people are saying how Anthony Joshua, he's ducking Alexander Usyk. Suddenly now he's fighting Alexander Usyk. Well, Alexander Usyk, he's a small cruiserweight. It's easy work. What is he fighting him for? Just another Anthony Joshua padding up his resume. These are the kind of people that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And for me, these kind of people know absolutely nothing, or at least very, very limited when it comes to boxing, especially the politics that go on behind in boxing. Now, when it comes to Dillian Whyte, of course, usually I would know who it is that he's going to be fighting. Not each and every time, of course not. I mean, I'm not glued to his hip, but I knew who's going to be fighting Helenius. I knew who's going to be fighting the Chisora rematch and quite a few others. In fact, the only time I was really taken by surprise, actually, was when he fought Joseph Parker, as in the press conference. I knew he was going to be having a press conference in a couple of days' time. I spoke with Dillian. Luis Ortiz was going to be his opponent, because that's what it was that Dillian Whyte told me. He had agreed to fight Luis Ortiz. Everything in principle was done Luis Ortiz's side. Last minute, Luis Ortiz turned the fight down for $2 million, which is why they had to rush over and get Joseph Parker last minute. Okay, so that's the only real time that I was surprised. I was expecting Luis Ortiz and then outwalk Joseph Parker. Okay, that's probably the only real time that I was ever taken by surprise. But on this situation, I have absolutely no inside information whatsoever. I haven't spoken to Dillian in a little while for no reason, really. There's nothing going on. Well, I don't think he's got the umpire. I have no idea. Maybe he has. Maybe I've said something that he doesn't like, or I don't know. You never know in boxing. You never know. Maybe it's a WBC. Maybe I've overreacted with the WBC, and of course they punished Dillian for it. Trust me, the WBC, very, very temperamental. Now, when it comes to potential opponent for Dillian Whyte, now, of course, a lot of you have seen Dillian Whyte do interviews this past weekend. Eddie Hearn's done them in that as well, although most people are talking about that hat that Dillian Whyte was wearing. Sorry, mate, that was awful. But when it comes to his next opponent, names brought out such as Jermaine Franklin, such as Chris Arreola, Charles Martin, and one or two others. What is it that people react to all day yesterday on Sunday? This morning as well, I'm seeing it as well. Unhappy. Why is Dillian Whyte fighting this person? Why is he talking about Arreola? Why is he talking about Charles Martin? Why is he talking about Jermaine Franklin? Why is he not fighting Andy Ruiz Jr.? Why is he not fighting this person? Why is he not fighting Wilder? Why? Because they don't understand the politics of boxing. They also don't care, and this is how limited that some of these people are, which is he's had 37 fights, amateur and pro. As of right now, 37 fights, amateur and pro combined. If you even know just a little bit about boxing, you'll understand that's nothing. Absolutely nothing. But to them, they don't care. Unless, of course, it's their favourite fighter, then suddenly they care. They will talk about it, right? But when it comes to, say, Andy Ruiz Jr., again, I broke this news to you about 2, maybe 3 months before Dillian publicly spoke about it. And Eddie Hearn publicly spoke about it because Dillian gave me permission to release the number, which was that Dillian Whyte offered him between 5 and 6 million. Andy Ruiz Jr. turned it down. Point is, you can't force these people into the ring with him. You may want to see him fight Andy Ruiz Jr. You can't force him into the ring. And even if Andy Ruiz Jr. suddenly agrees to fight Dillian Whyte, these very same people, well, this little fat man who doesn't even train, blah, 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 blah. That's what they do. Much like they were moaning about Alexander Povetkin when he fought Alexander Povetkin. Same people moaned when Anthony Joshua fought Povetkin, even though Joshua, he had no choice, by the way, because that was his mandatory. Same people moaning. But when, say, David Price fought him, when Hughie Fury fought him, when Michael Hunter fought him, brilliant, great fights, love them. So how bad do you really rate Michael Hunter and Hughie Fury and David Price? People are just unhappy. People just like to moan about Joshua and Dillian Whyte. Now, as far as, say, Andy Ruiz Jr., I've already explained that one. I've already explained how Luis Ortiz turned it down. Deontay Wilder has turned it down multiple times, even up to $7 million, which at the time, his highest payday was $2.1 million when he fought Luis Ortiz. Deontay Wilder even sent Dillian Whyte a personal message saying, I'm going to freeze you out, I ain't going to fight you, and no one's going to force me. And the WBC were backing him up with it. So again, how can these people get in the ring with Dillian Whyte if they're unwilling to do so? What's he supposed to do? Not fight? That's ridiculous. So of course, one of the names that people are unhappy with would be Chris Arreola. But yet, it was okay when Andy Ruiz Jr. recently fought him. And it's okay that they actually put it on pay-per-view. Again, speaking of pay-per-view, you do realise that Dillian Whyte is no longer on pay-per-view, right? Because he's on DAZN now. DAZN, currently £1.99 a month, is going to be rising, of course, which I'm hearing, it's not fact by the way, but I've heard that it's going to be £5.99 a month, maybe $6.99. So it's not pay-per-view. So you haven't got to pay £20, £21 to watch Dillian Whyte fight whoever it is that he's going to fight. But it was good enough for Andy Ruiz Jr. to fight Chris Arreola. That's no problem, right? It was good enough when Wilder fought Chris Arreola. It was good enough when Adam Kalinacki fought Chris Arreola. But it's not good enough for Dillian Whyte. It's not like Chris Arreola is getting worse. Chris Arreola has been the same since he's debuted right the way through to now. He's always been gatekeeper level. He's never gone up. He's never gone down. That's his lot in life, okay? That's his career as a boxer. So why is it okay for these people to fight Chris Arreola, but Dillian Whyte, that's a whole nother story. Whole nother story. But it was okay when, say, Tyson Fury fought Tom Schwartz. Oh, that's all right. It was okay when Tyson Fury fought Otto Wallin. Well, that's all right. It was okay when Wilder rematched Ortiz for a second time. Oh, well, that's all right. Double standards. Seems to be a lot of double standards. But Chris Arreola, is that the kind of fight that I want to see Dillian Whyte in? I've said this for quite some time. Dillian needs to stop risking his position. Do what other heavyweights do. Do what Bermane Stiverne done when he got his mandatory shot at Wilder. Bermane Stiverne, after he lost the belt, had one fight in a period of about, what was it, 2 years, maybe 3 years? He fought Derek Rossi. Arguably lost that fight, even got dropped in that fight, by the way. And then got his mandatory title shot against Wilder. But that's all right, isn't it? Dominic Brazil shouldn't have even been the mandatory, but became the mandatory by defeating Eric Molina. Fought one person in between before he got a shot at Wilder. They weren't fighting a Povetkin. They weren't fighting a Oscar Rivas. They weren't fighting even Marius Wack level. So I don't understand these people who want to complain about it. Again, let's not forget Chris Arreola, if he does end up fighting Chris Arreola dropped Andy Ruiz Jr. He dropped him. So if you're going to say, well, he should be fighting Andy Ruiz Jr. and not fighting Chris Arreola, I understand. But Andy Ruiz Jr. don't want to fight him. I don't know how else I can explain it to you. They don't want to fight him. We can go back onto the Joshua. I've done the interview with Dillian. He explained why he didn't fight Anthony Joshua. He explains it. There was certain things about the VADA testing on Anthony Joshua's side that Dillian weren't happy about. And of course, there was the money in that as well, along with the rematch. He got offered far less money than what Big Baby Jarrett Miller was eventually offered. Less than Luis Ortiz was offered. Less than what Andy Ruiz Jr. was offered to fight Anthony Joshua. He knows his market value. He knows his market value at Wembley Stadium against Anthony Joshua in a big super rematch is far more than what it was that he was going to be getting offered. Eddie Hearn even told you he knew Dillian Whyte was going to turn it down because he knows Dillian Whyte's market value. Dillian is his own manager. So if he ends up does fighting Chris Arreola, or he does fight Jermaine Franklin, or he does fight Charles Mine, or he does fight whoever else, Otto Wallin, whoever it might be, how can you moan about it? It's going to be on DAZN. It's not pay-per-view. Everybody else takes a lighter touch. He doesn't take lighter touches. He doesn't. So when it comes to him, whoever it is that he fights, I'll be perfectly okay if he rematched Malcolm Tan. I'll be fine with that. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter. I think he's earned a bit of a tune-up, but I mean, that's not really his style. But again, he wants to fight Chris Arreola as an example because he wants to do to Chris Arreola what Andy Ruiz Jr. couldn't do, which is beat him up and knock him out. That's what he wants to do. People who say, well, he should try and do something with WBC to try and force the situation with the WBC title. You do know that WBC are their own entity, right? Yes, he should be suing them. Of course he should. I've even told him this. He should have done it a long time ago. But there's only so much you can do. The WBC, if they don't want you getting their title shot, then they don't want it. I mean, if it was me, I would have got the hint a long time ago that they don't want me. But when you've invested so much time, so much money, you can't just walk away. You need your reward. Of course you do. Tyson Fury, he got rewarded with a Wilder fight, even though the WBC ordered Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. Tyson Fury turned it down. But yeah, he still got a world title shot, so why shouldn't Dillian? Yes, sure, Dillian lost to Povetkin, but it beat him in the rematch. Shouldn't he get back what was his? Surely to God. Surely to God. But again, people will just criticise because they just don't like Dillian Whyte. It is what it is. People who don't like Dillian Whyte will try and look for certain things and try and look at certain angles that they actually have no clue about. Some people don't like Dillian Whyte because of the whole Mark Tibbs situation, because they don't know what actually happened. They don't know. That actually hasn't been publicly brought out. Of course I know bits, but people will just hate for the sake of hating when it comes to Dillian Whyte. So for me, if he fights Chris Arreola, cool, no problem. No problem. If he fights Charles Martin, no problem. If he fights Otto Wallin, no problem. If he fights Jermaine Franklin, no problem. If he does somehow fight Luis Ortiz, people who's been saying that he should be fighting Luis Ortiz, he's ducking Luis Ortiz. Even though I've just told you, he has actually put in offers for Luis Ortiz before, and Luis Ortiz turned them down. One of them was because he wanted to go fight in the Fury Wilder Part 1 undercard against Jermaine Franklin. Come on now. But his haters won't talk about that. At the end of the day, he can fight whoever it is that he wants. I'm perfectly happy with it. Absolutely fine. I ain't going to criticise whoever it is that he fights. I really ain't. As long as it ain't going to be a rematch with Chisora or a rematch with Parker, I don't really want to see those. A rematch with Marius Wack. Go out there and just do an absolute job on him. Because obviously when they fought over in Saudi Arabia, Dillian Whyte was out of shape. He hasn't trained in months because he thought he was losing his boxing licence. Okay, so anyway, that's my thoughts on the whole situation. You drop me yours, click thumbs up, and of course subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next video.